former Afro regional executives, former ministers of state, former and current members of parliament, national council members, our students from the Kirkwood College of Education, Kintampo College of Health, Sunyani Polytechnic, University of Energy and Natural Resources, Catholic University College, Sunyani Medicine and Midwifery Training College, Valley View University. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be here today and to share with you a few thoughts on our economy and the agenda for positive change going forward. You will all recall that the NPP, having come to power in 2000, inherited an economy that was hectic. It was a big economy, an economy that could not pay its bills. We were having problems paying basic government statutory obligations. And this was the situation when the NPP took over. Ghana's debt to GDP ratio was 189%. It was so high, and therefore the NPP had to re-engineer the economy. We went through a process of declaring HIPIC and resetting economic management. By the end of 2008, we had moved Ghana from a low-income HIPIC economy to a lower middle-income economy. And that economy was able to support significant social intervention. We had established a national health insurance scheme which was working with free maternal care. We had national youth employment which was working. We had established the school feeding program. We established the Metro Mass Transit with free basic ride for school children. At the same time, we were paying teacher training allowances. We were paying nursing training allowances. And we were paying our statutory obligations to the GET Fund, to the National Health Insurance Fund, and to the District Assembly Common Fund. This was basically the state of the economy, and we had increased the growth of the economy from 3.7% in 2000 to 9.1% by the end of 2008. And ladies and gentlemen, all this was done without oil. Ghana had not gotten any benefits of oil during the NPP regime, even though we discovered oil in 2007 in commercial quantities. So this was the state of play. And then come the 2008 elections, the NDC came and said they could offer a better Ghana. They said they could offer a better Ghana. Well, by hook or by crook, they were elected into office, and today we are 8 years into the NDC government. 8 years into the NDC government. What we are seeing today calls for some deep introspection. After 8 years in government, this NDC government has had more in terms of economic resources than probably all other governments put together in Ghana's history. That is from 1957 to date. No government, and I repeat, no government has had the amount of financial resources that this NDC government had at its disposal. In the 8 years, and I'm going to just compare with the NPP government and this NDC government. In the 8 years between 2001 and 2008, the total tax revenue that the NPP collected was 15.2 billion Ghana cedis. In taxes, in 8 years, NPP collected. In contrast, the NDC government has collected just in the last 7 years, not 8 years, in tax revenue, 90 billion Ghana. So we collected 15 billion in 8 years, in 7 years they collected 90 billion. In terms of gold exports during the NPP's 8 years was $9 billion, and in the last 7 years of the NDC, we've had $28 billion of gold exports. So that is a huge difference. In terms of cocoa exports, in the NPP's time, in 8 years, we exported $7.4 billion. In the last 7 years of the NDC, they've exported $60.5 billion in cocoa. Then you go to oil. NPP, of course, had no oil revenue in the 8 years, zero. And then in the last 5 years, since oil was discovered, or the last 5 years since oil was discovered, the NDC has collected $13.7 billion. So this is just in terms of oil, in terms of taxes, in terms of cocoa, and then in terms of gold. But I am going to bring you something which is even more mind-boggling. This is in terms of loans. In terms of loans that this government has collected. From independence in 1957 to the end of the NPP's era, that is in 2008, Ghana's total debt stock was 9.5 billion Ghana cedis. That is all of Ghana's debt from independence to 2008. 51 years, 9.5 billion Ghana. In the last 7 years and 3 months, that is up to March this year, the NDC has increased the debt from 9.5 billion to 111 from 9.5 billion to 111 billion Ghana. They have added an additional 100 billion Ghana cedis to the debt just in the last 7 years and 3 months. And if you look at just January to March alone, they added 14 billion. That is more than the whole of Ghana's debt from independence to 2008. So if you look at loans, taxes alone, the MPP in 8 years in loans and taxes collected 20 billion Ghana cedis. In 8 years, 20 billion. The NDC in 7 years in loans and taxes have collected 200 billion. 20 billion.
How many deserve about
200 billion.
20 man deserve about 200.
We were able to put together, as I said, national health insurance, national youth employment, free maternal care, metro mass, school feeding, paid teacher training, nursing training, and all this without oil, capitation, and all of that without oil. But with 200 billion, you are not able to meet your obligations. With 200 billion, you cannot pay teacher training allowance. With 200 billion, you cannot pay nursing training allowance. With 200 billion, the national health insurance is in trouble. With 200 billion, you are having problems paying salaries and payments to contractors. You cannot pay teacher training allowances and nursing training allowances. Of course, yes, you are reminding me of Dukso. With 200 billion, your currency, your economic growth has slowed down to what it was in 2000, even when you had oil. With 200 billion, your interest rates are so high. With 200 billion, people cannot find jobs when they finish school. The cost of living is so high, businesses are collapsing. Ladies and gentlemen, with 200 billion, teachers are suffering. Nurses are suffering. Patients are suffering. Traders are suffering. Pensioners are suffering. Drivers are suffering. Civil servants are suffering. Farmers are suffering. Retirees are suffering. Yes, students are suffering. So, this is why I told the president and his government some months ago that if the NPP could do all that we did with 20 billion Ghana cedis, and they have come to collapse everything with 200 billion Ghana cedis, then it means that they are incompetent.
Incompetent underline.
The president was not happy with my use of the word incompetent.
I like that word.
He said that I had never been a president before, so I cannot tell him he is incompetent or his government is incompetent. So excuse me, if you are in a car or a van and the driver is about to crash you, can't you tell?
Oh, why not? Why not?
Yes, even though you are not the driver, you can tell this is not a good driver. And on 7th November 2016, we are going to change that driver and bring the more competent driver to bring Ghana and the Doctor and the when Nana Akufo-Addo takes over, I'll be very happy as his driver's mate for us to drive that vehicle of God. One of the big questions that we all have to ask is, what has the NDC done with all this money that they have borrowed?
Into their own accounts.
What have they really done? You've increased the debt from 9.5 billion to 111 billion as we speak. 111. By the time you reach the end of this year, you are definitely talking about 150 billion. But what have you really done with all of this money? What is very interesting, and the managing director of the International Monetary Fund confirms this, and when she says that most of Ghana's borrowing was not used for investment, but rather for consumption. It was not used for investment, but rather for consumption. Now the FDC will want you to believe that they use the money for investment. So they went and put together what they call the Green Book. And they put together all sorts of projects, including artistic impressions of projects. So we went to do a costing of all those projects in the Green Book to see if they came any close to the 100 or so billion Ghana cedis that they have borrowed. But when you look at all the costing of the projects in their Green Book, it doesn't even come close to 28 billion Ghana cedis. So if you borrowed over 100 billion and you can only account for less than 28 billion Ghana cedis, then where is the rest of the money? Incompetency. Of what happened to this money. The FPP, even though it did not have this quantum of money, invested a lot all over the country. We invested in education, we invested in health, and so on. In education, for example, we constructed all the 3 campuses of the University of Development Studies. All the 3 campuses. And FDC, even though they established the university, did not put a single block on those campuses. All the 3 campuses were constructed. We also constructed the Bolga Polytechnic, the Wa Polytechnic, established the University of Mines at Takwa, University of Education at Winneba was given autonomy. We established the Ghana Telecom University, established the Ghana Maritime University, 28 teacher training colleges were upgraded, and so on. We invested in education. But when you look at, when I talk about economic mismanagement, then you have to look at the sort of borrowing that has taken place and the impact of that borrowing. Because you've increased the debt so much, you've increased the debt so much, today to 111 billion Ghana cedis. It means you have to pay a lot of interest on that borrowing. The interest alone on Ghana's debt in 2016 is 10.5 billion Ghana cedis. That is interest, not even capital. Interest on the debt, 10.5 billion Ghana cedis. Remember, the total debt in 2008 was 9.5 billion. Total debt. Today, the interest we are going to be paying is 10.5. And that interest, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. The interest on Ghana's debt this year is 6 times Ghana's oil revenue. 6 times our oil revenue. When we discovered oil, I remember we were so excited. Ghana is now an oil-producing country. All our problems are solved. We're so happy. But now, with the borrowing that this NDC government has done, you need 6 times the oil revenue just to pay interest on the debt. Interest on the debt. So Ghana's oil discovery has been completely compromised by this government. Reckless borrowing. Completely compromised. And this is why the space has been taken away. And this is why they have now resulted in desperate measures. Instead of attacking the real problem, which is this, reckless borrowing, they go to attack the people who have nothing to do with the economic mess. They go and attack teacher trainees who will cancel your allowance. Go and attack nursing trainees who will cancel your allowance. They will stop paying school feeding grants. They will stop paying contractors and so on. This is where they are trying to balance the books from. But in fact, if you look at the numbers, 1 year, and I'll give this to you, 1 year of interest payments can pay teacher and nursing training allowances for 70 years.
Can you repeat it?
1 year.
Thank you.
1 year. You have to do these numbers, and so I'm giving that to you. 1 year of Ghana's interest payment this year would pay teacher and nursing training allowances for 70. And so you see where the mismanagement of the economy is. And so when the government tells you, oh, you cannot pay teacher and nursing training allowances, it means they don't really understand the economy. It means they haven't really looked at the numbers. Because teacher and nursing training allowances are not the cause of the economic problem.
Yes.
And therefore, Nana Akufo-Addo will restore teacher and nursing training allowances. For us, it is non-negotiable. It is the non-negotiable promise we will make, because it is economically very, very easy to fulfill. The numbers are not that significant in terms of the overall budget. We will restore teacher training allowances. We will restore the nursing training allowances as well. The very first budget in 2017, and it is good to tell you that we have just 217 days more to bring this change about. 217. It is 217 more days to build a new economy. We are going to take this economy in a new direction. We are going to build a new economy and build a job-creating economy. So far, where the MPP left off in 2008, if we had continued along that trajectory, we would have had a different economy today. Unfortunately, we went on a very different trajectory, and we ended up in where we are today. And so it is time to move the economy into a whole new trajectory and build what we call the most people-friendly and the most business-friendly economy in Africa. That is what we are going to do. We are building the most people-friendly, the most business-friendly economy in Africa. This is not going to be a Wyoming economy. No, it is not going to be a Wyoming economy. It is not going to be a Tunso economy. It is not going to be an unemployment economy. It is not going to be a JIDA economy. It is not going to be a SADA economy. It is not going to be a dead goat economy. It is not a propaganda economy. It's definitely not going to be a high-tax economy. It is going to be a Ghanaian economy, a new economy that we are going to build for all Ghanaians, irrespective of tribe, religion, age, or gender. We are going to build a globally competitive Ghanaian economy. And we believe that we can do this. Just imagine, and this is why sometimes it's mind-boggling. What was borrowed in the last 7 years? This 100 billion Ghana cedis. Can you imagine what you can do with 100 billion? Ghana cedis. 100 billion. If they gave you 100 billion Ghana. Just give each region, right? Give each region in Ghana just 2 billion Ghana cedis for infrastructure and see what will happen. Huh? Just look at it. Ghana Water says all they need is $2 billion, the equivalent of 8 billion Ghana cedis to solve all of Ghana's water problems. That's what Ghana Water says. $2 billion will solve all of Ghana's water problems. With 100 billion, we will have built a complete rail network in Ghana. Complete rail network would have made energy self-sufficient, no problem with water, invested in factories, and so on. So you would have had a completely new economy. But they have wasted the opportunity. They have wasted it completely. But hope is not lost. Hope is not lost. In 217 days' time, we will have an opportunity to change the destiny of this country. We will have an opportunity to bring in Nana Adodankwa Akufo-Addo. We are going to build a new economy. And that new economy is going to be focused on production, production, production. That is where we are going to be focused on. Produce so that you can create jobs. The number one priority for Nana Akufo-Addo government is creating jobs.
Thank you.
Creating jobs. So we are going to focus the economic policy measures so as to be in the direction of job creation. This government of the NDC has been focusing on taxation. Yes. And we keep telling them, and we have repeated often, that focus on taxation is killing jobs. But because of their overspending and overborrowing, they are so desperate for tax revenue. And so they tax anything that will move, including cutlasses and condoms. Anything. And we tell them that this fixation on taxation is killing jobs. And we are going to focus on job creation. And so we are saying, for example, companies under the Nana Akufo-Addo government are going to be given tax credits for hiring fresh graduates. So if you hire a fresh graduate, the salaries you will be paying to the fresh graduates, a significant proportion of those salaries will be tax deductible, and therefore you will get the opportunity to employ more graduates. We will definitely get more employment coming through that incentive. We are also going to help our local industry. We have said one of the biggest problems and challenges facing our local industries is the taxes at the ports. The taxes at the ports are too high. When raw materials are brought in for production, you pay very high import duties. But you are competing with other countries. When you pay those high import duties, then your ability to produce and compete is limited. We are saying that we have a different philosophy. And I got this issue very clear. I met a fufu powder producer in New York. A fufu powder producer he was producing a brand of fufu powder called Mama's Choice Fufu Powder. I met him at a function in New York and he introduced himself. And I said, oh, Mr. Dusen, where in Ghana is your factory? He said, oh, I don't have a factory in Ghana. I said, how? Fufu powder? How can you be producing fufu powder in New York? He said, oh, the story. I started it in Ghana. But when I brought in my inputs for the packaging and everything of this fufu powder, one container, I was being charged $13,000 to clear one container. And he said I was therefore not able to export. I couldn't compete. He said, but in New York, when I bring in the same container that I brought into Ghana, they charge me $200. Compare $13,000 he paid in Ghana versus $200 he paid in New York. So he got up and moved the factory to New York. So in Ghana, we've lost the jobs, and we've lost the income taxes, and we've lost the corporate tax. So we are saying that what you need to do when it makes economic sense is that you should allow the raw materials that go into production to come in duty-free. When the raw materials come in duty-free, then the companies can employ people, they can make money, we can get income taxes and corporate taxes afterwards. We have a different approach from the NDC. We don't kill the business at the beginning. Let the business produce and let us benefit from their existence. So under Enema Akufo-Addo government, starting in the first budget next year, by the grace of God. Amen. Inshallah. All raw materials into the production of goods, and services in Ghana will come in duty-free. And also, not only raw materials, all manufacturing equipment, all equipment that we bring in to manufacture goods and services will also come in duty-free. So that we want to boost production. We want to encourage people to set up businesses, bring in the equipment to manufacture, bring in the raw materials to manufacture. This is not new. If you go back into economic history, this is the path that has been followed by almost every superpower. This is what has happened. Go back as far as 1489 England, 1789, all of those days. You go and see what all the major powers did. This is the path they follow. And Ghana should follow a similar path. We should support our local industries to be competitive in this globally competitive economy. So we are thinking of a very different economic approach. We want to make Ghana a production hub in the African subcontinent. We want investors to think about coming to set up in Ghana to produce and export from Ghana. So this is where we are going. We also believe that Ghana has a very big competitive advantage in education. Ghanaian education is valued all over, especially within the African continent. Education is an area we can really become a net exporter in. We can make sure that a lot of people come in to undertake various courses and here. This is why we are taking a non-compromising approach in our support of education and our investment in education. Our support for group research allowances of our lecturers in the universities, of teacher training allowances and nursing training allowances, all of those are supporting education so that we become a very, very competitive country when it comes to education. We are If you think about it, if you are going to build a new economy, there's no economy in the world that has been built without a very strong mortgage market. The real estate sector is a major sector in the economy. It therefore surprised me that we were imposing VAT on real estate sales. And again, this was done because the government became desperate in terms of collecting taxes. But we need to support a very vibrant mortgage market in this country. Ghana, if you look at Ghana, the cost of housing is very, very high. The cost of housing is very, very high, and we need to really support the real estate sector to bring down the cost of housing. One area where we can really change the economy is through formalization. Our economy is highly informal. After 8 years in government and 8 years since the passage of the National Identification Act, our country has still not been able to issue national ID cards. After 8 years, and national ID cards are so important for the management of any economy because it provides you with the fundamental basic data about the people in the economy, in the country. We don't have national ID card, we don't have a functioning address and postcode system. And we need to have ICT-based governance. If you cannot have a basic thing like national ID cards, how do you have ICT-based governance? You need to have that so that you can link the databases of the births and deaths registry, the national ID, the electoral commission, the police, records, insurance, passport office, immigration, DVLA, and so on. With formalization of the economy, you will be able to broaden the tax base. Our tax base is so narrow, and that's why we keep increasing taxes. If you broaden the tax base, you know who is where, what to tax, and so on, then you don't need to keep increasing taxes. With lower taxes, you will actually be able to collect much more. So we believe in formalization of the economy and broadening the tax base, ladies and gentlemen. We want to enhance the business environment and reduce the cost of doing business. Because if we are to keep competing globally, we cannot be paying 3 times more for electricity than, say, our competitors in South Asia. Pay 5 times more in import duties or 5 times more in interest rates, whilst continually facing a depreciating currency. We need to build a new Ghana. We have to make Ghana a land of opportunities rather than a land of obstacles. The system as it is a pull him down system. We have to dismantle it. We have to crush it. The government's first job is to create an enabling environment for every hard-working Ghanaian to succeed. One of the things that we were doing that has been totally forgotten by this government, Ghana was really on course to building a financial center in Africa, in Ghana. We had started with major financial sector reforms, probably the most wide-ranging financial sector reforms in the history of this country during the MPP government. Unfortunately, most of these reforms have stalled, but we can build Ghana again into a financial sector hub. Those days, during the MPP era, you saw the banks chasing people to come and work for them. You saw many banks coming to set up. You saw banks chasing people to give them loans. Didn't you remember that? Those days, banks were chasing people to give them loans. These were the results of deliberate policies that the MPP put in place. Unfortunately, today, the banks are running away from people. They are not giving them loans. The macroeconomic environment is not stable. We have to do something different. We believe that we can bring back the good times in the financial sector. We can increase the proportion of people who are banked. Make sure there are more people who enter the banking world, the world of the bank. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, we can deal with corruption, and we should deal with corruption. We have been saddled with Wyoming, Sada, Jida, America Power, Car Power, and so on. Yes, I suppose so. There are so many, the Bass Brandon, Smarties, and so on. All of these have cost us billions of Ghana cedis together. Billions of Ghana cedis. We could have done so much more. And the Akufo-Addo government is going to attack corruption head on and make sure that this sort of filtering of people's money does not take place. It's pure thievery, it's pure stealing, it's create, loot, and share. And it is time that we deal with it head on. And the easiest way to deal with corruption, apart from other aspects of the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, is to increase transparency. Once there's transparency, things cannot be hidden in the dark. Corruption loves a lot of opaqueness, but once you shine the light onto corruption, it runs away very quickly. And this is why we have insisted all these years on the passage of the Right to Information Bill. This Right to Information Bill, however, this government has refused to pass all these years. They have refused to pass it. But in Nana Akufo-Addo government, in the very first year, we will pass this Right to Information Bill so that people can get information about what is happening. We are going to undertake procurement reform because right now the government is only focused on single source procurement. They even finish awarding the contract before they go to the procurement authority, as you saw in the Smarties case. So we are going to change this. Single source procurement should not become the norm. It should become the exception. It is time for change.